Why intelligent people? Scare society, Schopenhauer. Intro. Have you ever noticed how society often regards its most intelligent and deep-thinking individuals with a mix of admiration and unease? From the ancient philosopher forced to drink poison to the solitary genius laughed at by his contemporaries, history tells a recurring story. Those who see further or think differently are frequently met with suspicion, fear, or hostility. Why is it that high intelligence, especially when coupled with moral courage and independent thought, tends to unsettle the masses? In this reflective and cinematic exploration, we'll delve into the insights of Arthur Schopenhauer, Fyodor Dostoevsky, and other great minds to understand why deep thinkers often scare society. We'll journey through themes of conformity, solitude, inner turmoil, power and truth, the outsider mystique, the bond between intelligence and suffering, and what all this means for us today. Prepare for a thought-provoking ride, one that shines a light on the lonely heights of genius and why the world down below sometimes prefers to look away. 1. The nature of intelligence and society's conformity. At the heart of this issue lies a clash between individual insight and group comfort. Human societies thrive on shared norms and consensus, a comfortable rhythm of agreement that keeps the peace. An exceptionally intelligent person, however, often questions norms and sees through illusions, which can disrupt that harmony. As a result, society tends to pressure individuals to conform, sometimes at the cost of authenticity. Philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer observed that we forfeit 3/4 of ourselves in order to be like other people. In other words, people often sacrifice originality for acceptance, trimming down the parts of themselves that might not fit in. An intelligent freethinker, by contrast, resists this sacrifice, and that very refusal can make others uneasy. Why would this cause fear or hostility? One reason is that a person who thinks independently may indirectly highlight the conformity of everyone else. Their mere existence can feel like a challenge. It's been said that the nail that sticks out gets hammered down, and in social terms, the hammer can be ridicule, exclusion, or even persecution. The average person might respond defensively to someone who questions their cherished beliefs or introduces ideas beyond their understanding. Schopenhauer noted that every man takes the limits of his own field of vision for the limits of the world. When someone of great intellect expands those limits or points out that the world is bigger or different than people assumed, the first reaction is often denial or fear. Rather than examine an uncomfortable truth, it's easier for the group to label the truth-teller as crazy, arrogant, or dangerous. In this way, society's conformity becomes a shield against challenges to its collective worldview. The intelligent individual, unfortunately, often finds themselves on the outside of that shield, cast as a threat simply for seeing what others cannot or will not see. Second, Schopenhauer's view on solitude and genius. Arthur Schopenhauer, the brooding German philosopher, believed that genius thrives in solitude. In his view, intelligent and creative individuals actually need isolation to develop original ideas, precisely because the noise of society can stifle independent thought. A man can be himself only so long as he is alone, Schopenhauer wrote, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom, for it is only when he is alone that he is really free. In solitude, the mind can roam freely beyond conventional wisdom. But this love of solitude can come at a social cost, separation, misunderstanding, and the label of being unsocial. Schopenhauer didn't see that as a bad thing. To him, it was a mark of independence. A high degree of intellect tends to make a man unsocial, he observed bluntly. Rather than enjoying idle chatter, a genius would prefer the company of books, nature, or his own thoughts. Small talk and everyday social pleasantries often bore the deep thinker. To average folks, this withdrawal can appear as aloofness or arrogance, when in truth it is often just the natural habitat of a fertile mind. Schopenhauer used a powerful image to illustrate this. Great men are like eagles and build their nest on some lofty solitude. The eagle soars alone at high altitudes where the air is thin, a metaphor for the rarefied realm of insight where few can follow. Down on the ground, the flock might gaze up and feel uneasy about that solitary eagle. Why is he not down here pecking on the ground with us? The solitude of genius can indeed make the crowd nervous, partly because it's unfamiliar, and partly because it suggests that the eagle sees something far beyond the valley of common experience. Schopenhauer knew this well. He himself lived a relatively reclusive life, finding companionship mainly in his poodle and his philosophy. He argued that those of great mind become indifferent to the opinions of others once they realize how superficial others' thoughts and narrow their views often are. That indifference can be perceived as threatening. After all, a person who doesn't need society's approval is harder to control. In Schopenhauer's pessimistic but insightful view, the independence of genius was both its glory and its burden. A free mind is exhilarating, but it may stand alone on the mountaintop, with society skittishly eyeing that lonely figure from below. 3. Dostoevsky on the inner turmoil of the thinker. If Schopenhauer explained why geniuses retreat from society, Fyodor Dostoevsky explored the storm within the thinker's own soul. Dostoevsky, the Russian novelist and philosopher of the human psyche, portrayed intelligent and sensitive individuals as often tortured by their acute consciousness. He suggested that profound insight frequently comes with pain and suffering. In his novel Crime and Punishment, Dostoevsky writes, "Pain and suffering are always inevitable for a large intelligence and a deep heart. The really great men must, I think, have great sadness on earth." This poignant observation reflects a belief that those who feel and understand more also suffer more. It's as if seeing the truth of life, all its injustices, contradictions, and absurdities, weighs heavily on the mind. While others may be content with surface-level joys, the deep thinker grapples with existential questions and moral dilemmas that have no easy answers. This inner turmoil can make such individuals seem moody, pessimistic, or overly serious to society, which in turn can alienate them further. The tragic irony is that society fears their intellect, while the intellect is simultaneously wounding its possessor with excessive worry and doubt. Dostoevsky dramatized this in his famous novella Notes from Underground, whose unnamed narrator is a retired civil servant with an overactive mind. The underground man, as he's known, is extremely intelligent and analytical, and he's miserable. "I swear to you that to think too much is a disease, a real, actual disease," he proclaims. In him we see how extreme self-awareness and intellect can lead to paralysis. He overthinks every social interaction, every decision, until he's incapable of the simple actions that bring ordinary people happiness. This portrayal might be exaggerated for effect, but it carries a seed of truth. High intelligence can breed overanalysis, self-consciousness, and a kind of existential angst. Dostoevsky knew this from personal experience. He was a man of intense spiritual and philosophical struggles. Through characters like Raskolnikov, the tormented student in Crime and Punishment, and Ivan Karamazov, the intellectual brother in The Brothers Karamazov who wrestles with doubt and despair, Dostoevsky showed that great thinkers often live with great inner conflict. Society, seeing only the outward oddity or melancholy of such individuals, may react with fear or dismissiveness, not realizing that the fight is largely within the thinker's own heart. The very depth that could enlighten others first exacts a price on the one who possesses it, a painful solitude of the mind that Dostoevsky heartbreakingly illuminates. 4. Why intelligence can be threatening to power structures. Socrates stands as a timeless example of how threatening intelligence can be to established power. In 399 BC, the people of Athens sentenced their wisest citizen to death. Why? Socrates was simply asking questions, penetrating, unrelenting questions that challenged the moral and religious complacency of the Athenian leadership. His intellect and moral courage exposed uncomfortable truths and made the powerful look foolish, and for that, he was seen as a dangerous man. Ever since, history has shown a pattern. When an intelligent individual challenges the status quo, those in power often feel threatened. It's not just that the ideas are new or strange, it's that they might undermine the authority of leaders, traditions, or institutions. An independent mind is the natural enemy of tyranny and dogma. As such, regimes and power structures through the ages have often responded to great thinkers with censorship, exile, or worse. Galileo Galilei, for instance, peered through his telescope and announced that the Earth was not the center of the universe, a truth that rattled the very foundation of church authority. He was summoned by the Inquisition and forced to recant, spending the rest of his life under house arrest. His intelligence threatened a power structure built on a certain interpretation of scripture and cosmology, so that structure moved swiftly to silence him. This dynamic, power-fearing truth, repeats in various forms. Giordano Bruno, another visionary, was burned at the stake for suggesting an infinite cosmos and other ideas ahead of his time. In more recent history, many authoritarian governments have made a habit of targeting intellectuals, writers, and scientists precisely because such people have the capacity to question and inspire others to question. There is an ominous logic to it. If you want to maintain an unjust or corrupt order, you must demonize or eliminate those who can see through the lies. Independent intelligence threatens not only specific ideas, but the very habit of critical thinking, which is the lifeblood of liberty. It's no wonder, then, that whistleblowers and reformers are often cast as traitors or lunatics by those whose power they challenge. Speaking the truth in a system built on lies is a revolutionary act, and revolutions are rarely welcomed by the ruling class. Even outside overtly oppressive systems, social power structures, such as majority opinion or popular culture, can feel attacked when a smart outsider contradicts popular beliefs. It triggers a defensive response. Neutralize the threat. This might mean mocking the intellectual, labeling them elitist, out of touch, or dangerous. The English essayist William Hazlitt once quipped, "Truth is a bitter herb." Those who serve that herb to society often find themselves on the receiving end of society's bitterness. To maintain control and comfort, power structures, from governments to social majorities, prefer to shoot the messenger rather than heed the message. In this way, extraordinary intelligence coupled with moral courage becomes a threat to any established order built on complacency, prompting an instinctive effort to scare, suppress, or sacrifice the one who dares to speak up. 5. The misunderstood role of the outsider. Throughout history, the figure of the outsider appears again and again. The lone voice in the wilderness, the eccentric in the village, the heretic in the temple. Often, this outsider is simply ahead of their time or marching to a different drumbeat, yet society misunderstands and even mistreats them. Ralph Waldo Emerson, champion of individualism, put it beautifully. Is it so bad, then, to be misunderstood? Pythagoras was misunderstood, and Socrates, and Jesus, and Luther, and Copernicus, and Galileo, and Newton, and every pure and wise spirit that ever took flesh. To be great is to be misunderstood. Emerson's point is that many of the great souls of history, philosophers, scientists, spiritual leaders, were outcasts in their own era. The very ideas that later generations hail as genius were the ones that their contemporaries greeted with scorn or fear. To be an outsider, in this sense, is almost a prerequisite for greatness. Society rarely embraces the truly original mind at first. Misunderstanding and skepticism are almost a natural reaction to something radically new. The outsider thus plays a paradoxical role. They are ostracized in their lifetime, yet often become celebrated after their death or after their ideas finally gain acceptance. The tragedy is that during their life, they endure loneliness and hostility when, in fact, they might be offering exactly what society needs to grow. Why are outsiders so misunderstood? Partly because human beings are uncomfortable with what they can't categorize. An outsider defies the usual categories. They might dress differently, speak differently, challenge norms that everyone else takes for granted. This can trigger everything from ridicule, making fun of the weirdo, to fear, viewing them as a subversive threat. In many cases, society only realizes in hindsight that the outsider was right or valuable. Vincent van Gogh, for example, died virtually unknown, considered strange and unstable by those around him. Decades later, his paintings are recognized as masterpieces and he as a visionary. Similarly, during their lives, Galileo was a heretic, Edgar Allan Poe was a madman, Emily Dickinson was a recluse. Yet all of them posthumously were seen as geniuses or pioneers in their fields. It's as if society needs time to catch up to the outsider's perspective. In the meantime, the outsider bears the cross of misunderstanding. There's even an old saying, "No prophet is accepted in his own country." The very community that births a visionary often cannot see past their prejudices to recognize the value of his or her message. Instead, they may cast the person out or punish them. This misunderstood outsider archetype appears in countless stories, from the biblical prophets to Cassandra of Troy, cursed to tell the truth and never be believed, to modern whistleblowers. Yet without these outsiders, society would stagnate. They are the innovators, the truth-tellers, the trailblazers. Their role is to challenge and inspire, even if that means standing alone. In Emerson's eyes, being misunderstood isn't just an accident, it's almost the mark of greatness. For the rest of us, perhaps the lesson is to listen more openly to those outsiders in our midst. The one who seems strange or scary today might be the harbinger of a better tomorrow. 6. Intelligence and suffering. A lonely bond. Why do intelligence and suffering so often appear together? We've touched on how a keen mind can experience inner turmoil, but there is also a deep loneliness that frequently accompanies great intelligence. The world of an insightful individual can be profoundly isolating, not just because others shun them, but because even in company they may feel alone. The psychologist Carl Jung noted, "Loneliness does not come from having no people about one, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself or from holding certain views which others find inadmissible." This encapsulates the predicament of the highly intelligent or visionary person. It's not the physical solitude that cuts the deepest, it's the feeling that they just don't understand me. Imagine holding ideas or observations that nobody around you can grasp or accept. It's like speaking an alien language. Over time, this gap can lead to a poignant sense of alienation, even if one is surrounded by others. An intelligent person may refrain from sharing their thoughts to avoid blank stares or hostility, which means hiding a part of oneself in everyday interactions. That hidden, unshared part becomes a silent companion and a source of sadness. As Dostoevsky expressed, the really great men must have great sadness on earth. Their minds roam in realms that can be painful and isolating, and their hearts often carry the weight of that knowledge. There is also the classic wisdom, going back to ancient times, that knowledge itself brings sorrow. The biblical book of Ecclesiastes observes, "For in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow." We can interpret this in a psychological sense. The more you truly understand the world, its injustices, its fragility, the inevitability of suffering, the harder it becomes to be carefree. Ignorance is bliss, as the saying goes, and conversely, great awareness can be a burden. An intelligent person might see problems on the horizon before others do, or detect layers of meaning in events that others gloss over. This heightened perception can lead to anxiety, frustration, or despair that others don't share. For example, a scientifically brilliant mind might foresee the dire consequences of environmental destruction, yet when he voices concern, he's ignored or mocked. He carries the unshared worry within him. Or consider a morally intelligent person who perceives subtle injustices in society. They might feel the pain of those injustices personally, even if they themselves are not victims, because they empathize and understand so deeply. Meanwhile, those around might continue on indifferent, leaving the sensitive soul feeling both heartbroken and alone in that heartbreak. The bond between intelligence and suffering is also evident in many personal histories. Great poets, composers, and thinkers have famously battled depression, bipolar disorder, or other afflictions. It's as if their nerves are tuned to a higher pitch, making both joy and sorrow more intense. When society at large neither understands nor shares that intensity, the sense of being an outsider intensifies the pain. Yet, ironically, it is often through that very suffering that these individuals create art, philosophy, or innovations that later benefit humanity. The lonely struggles of a genius like Nikola Tesla, who reportedly felt most alive in his imagination and died nearly penniless and solitary, eventually gave the world technological gifts like AC electricity that power our daily lives. The world that shuns or neglects the sufferer in life often embraces their legacy later on. Knowing this doesn't necessarily ease the day-to-day loneliness of the intelligent individual, but it underscores a poignant truth. Sometimes those who light the way for others walk in considerable darkness themselves. 7. The fear of truth in a comfort-seeking culture. Beyond individual figures and power structures, there's a broader social phenomenon. People, in general, often fear uncomfortable truths. We live in cultures that seek comfort, happiness, and stability, so anything that disrupts those can be seen as an enemy. Highly intelligent or insightful people have a knack for pointing out truths that others overlook or avoid, and this can make them quite unpopular. Arthur Schopenhauer observed how unwelcome deep ideas can be in casual society. Intellectual talking and ideas are fit only for intellectual society. In ordinary society, they are positively loathed, for here, in order to go down well, it is absolutely necessary to be dull and narrow-minded. That might sound harsh, but think about social gatherings or popular media. Heavy truths or complex debates are often brushed aside in favor of light, pleasant topics. Challenging someone's illusion or belief, even out of compassion or earnestness, may provoke anger rather than gratitude. The truth-teller becomes a party pooper, a doom and gloom person, or even a threat to the collective comfort. Perhaps the most powerful illustration of this is Plato's allegory of the cave. In that classic metaphor, a group of people live chained in a cave, seeing only shadows on a wall and believing those shadows to be the whole of reality. One prisoner is freed and discovers the outside world, the true source of the shadows, illuminated by the sun. When he returns to tell the others, they refuse to believe him and react with hostility, even to the point of wanting to kill him for disturbing their familiar world. This is exactly how a comfort-seeking culture can react to an uncomfortable truth. The light hurts the eyes of those long accustomed to darkness, and they lash out at the one bringing it. Fyodor Dostoevsky gave a chilling twist on this idea in his parable of the Grand Inquisitor. In that story, within the brothers Karamazov, Jesus returns to earth during the Spanish Inquisition. Instead of rejoicing, the church has him arrested. The Grand Inquisitor explains to Jesus that people don't really want the freedom and truth he offers. They want security and miracle and authority. In the end, they will lay their freedom at our feet and say to us, "Make us your slaves, but feed us," says. Nothing has ever been more insupportable for a man and a human society than freedom. In this context, truth and freedom are frightening because they come with responsibility and uncertainty, whereas comforting lies and simple answers are easy to digest. A society will thus often reward those who provide comfort, even if it's false, and punish those who disturb comfort, even if it's for the sake of truth. We see echoes of this everywhere. Shoot the messenger is an age-old impulse. If a climate scientist delivers inconvenient data about our planet's future, a comfort-seeking public might discredit or vilify them rather than face the implications. If a moral activist shines a spotlight on systemic injustices, many will instinctively defend the status quo or look away, because acknowledging the truth would demand uncomfortable changes. Comfort is a warm, fuzzy blanket that people are reluctant to give up. An intelligent truth-teller, unfortunately, often walks into the room and pulls that blanket off, exposing the cold reality beneath. It's no surprise that society's first reaction is fear and anger. Put that blanket back. We don't want to see this. In modern life, this dynamic can even be amplified by algorithms and echo chambers. People curate their news and social feeds to avoid cognitive dissonance, effectively insulating themselves from challenging ideas. Thus, the fear of truth persists. Yet, without those courageous individuals who dare to tell the uncomfortable truths, how would society ever progress or heal? It's a delicate balance. We crave comfort, but we need truth. Intelligent individuals often stand at the fulcrum of this tension, sometimes hated for saying what, deep down, everyone knows to be true. Over time, as realities can no longer be ignored, society may come around. But the truth-teller's journey is a lonely and perilous one, especially in a culture intent on pursuing happiness, even at truth's expense. 8. How these insights apply today. All of these insights, from solitude to suffering to society's defensiveness, are not just historical anecdotes, they very much apply to our world today. In our modern era, you might think that advanced education and the information age would make society more embracing of intelligence and independent thought. Yet, the core dynamics remain. In classrooms, the child who asks too many probing questions might still be labeled a nerd or get teased by peers. In offices, the employee who voices uncomfortable truths, like spotting a serious flaw in a project that everyone else is optimistically overlooking, might be sidelined or branded not a team player. On social media, those who write long, nuanced posts analyzing issues are often drowned out by memes, slogans, and sound bites that are easier for the crowd to digest. Our culture, driven by an attention economy, sometimes favors the quick and entertaining over the deep and true. This means truly intelligent commentary can be pushed to the margins or even deliberately suppressed because it doesn't play well. Schopenhauer's quip that to be popular one must be dull and narrow-minded has eerie resonance in the age of viral content and clickbait. It's not that people today are less intelligent, but the systems of communication reward comfort and conformity. Algorithm-driven feeds often show us what we want to hear, not what we need to hear, creating echo chambers that can marginalize challenging voices. Thus, a modern deep thinker might find themselves shouting into the wind, much like prophets of old, trying to awaken a comfortable culture hooked on quick pleasures and reassuring narratives. Yet, there is hope and relevance in understanding these patterns. First, if you have ever felt alienated for thinking differently or for raising uncomfortable questions, know that you're walking a path trod by geniuses and visionaries before you. The loneliness you feel has been felt by the likes of Socrates, Schopenhauer, Dostoevsky, and countless others who refuse to silence their minds for the sake of fitting in. Their experiences provide a kind of companionship across time, a reminder that being an outsider can mean you're on the right track, seeing something real that others are not ready to see. It can also motivate you to find kindred spirits. Today's world, for all its challenges, also offers new opportunities. Niche communities, online forums, and global connectivity mean that an isolated thinker in one town can connect with another half a world away. Like-minded individuals can form their own intellectual society, fulfilling Schopenhauer's idea that intelligent ideas need receptive minds. In other words, if your local environment doesn't understand you, you might find your tribe of fellow eagles elsewhere, thanks to technology that transcends geography. Furthermore, recognizing why society sometimes reacts with fear can help us all navigate these issues more compassionately. If you are on the majority side, perhaps pause when you find yourself dismissing someone as too smart for their own good or ridiculing a viewpoint just because it's complex. Recall the allegory of the cave and ask, am I clinging to the shadows because the light is uncomfortable? The world today faces enormous challenges: climate change, technological disruption, social injustices, which frankly require intelligent, unconventional thinking to solve. We need those outsiders and deep thinkers more than ever. So there is a collective incentive to not repeat the mistakes of history by silencing or shunning them. As a culture, we can strive to foster environments in education, media, and public discourse that encourage critical thinking and welcome new ideas, even if they initially unsettle us. In the end, the lesson that emerges is one of balance and courage. For the intelligent individuals feeling scared or isolated, take heart in knowing your solitude can be strength, your suffering can have meaning, and your ideas can find their audience in time. As Dostoevsky's characters and Schopenhauer's eagle remind us, it is often the lonely who change the world. And for society at large, rather than fearing the intelligent, we can choose to engage with them, to listen, to question ourselves, and yes, to be comfortable being a bit uncomfortable. The societal fear of intelligent, independent people is ultimately a fear of change and of truth. But every leap forward for humanity has come from embracing a truth that was once feared. It may take moral courage on both sides, the courage of the thinker to speak up and the courage of society to hear them out. As we move forward, let's aspire to that courage. Let the eagles soar without panic from the nests below. Let the bearers of light not be cast back into the shadows. By understanding why intelligent people scare society, perhaps we can be less scared and more inspired by them. In a comfort-seeking world, it is the search for truth and wisdom that ultimately lights the way, even if the first glow of that light makes us blink and tremble. Conclusion. In our reflective journey, we've seen that high intelligence and deep thought often set individuals apart, in solitude, in suffering, in moral stance, and that this very distinction can make society uncomfortable or afraid. Arthur Schopenhauer taught us that genius may dwell on lonely heights and that freedom of the mind flourishes away from the crowd. Fyodor Dostoevsky revealed the aching heart of the thinker, burdened by awareness yet compelled to seek truth at any cost. We learned that power structures fear those who question, that outsiders are scapegoated until they're revered, and that truth can terrify a world built on easy comforts. These insights form a portrait of the intellectual rebel, part eagle, part exile, part torchbearer. Society may shun them, laugh at them, even crucify them, but time and again, it's their light that guides the way forward. So the next time we encounter someone who thinks differently, who stands apart in courage or vision, let's remember what we've explored here. Perhaps instead of fear, we can feel curiosity. Instead of hostility, perhaps a bit of humility. After all, today's heretic might be tomorrow's sage. In the words of Emerson, to be great is to be misunderstood. A price society can learn to pay a little more graciously, and a badge the insightful can learn to wear with quiet pride. In embracing that, we do justice not only to the lonely geniuses past and present, but to the very progress of human understanding. For it is on those scary, brilliant shoulders that the world is lifted to new heights.